course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's 6 o'clock. I'm Michelle Dewberry, and this is Dewbs & Co. We've got an exclusive interview with the Prime Minister today, and take a listen to this.
Calling for inquiries because they want to jump on a bandwagon of the far right.
He reckons that he wasn't talking about you, about normal people. He reckons that he was talking about politicians when he was referencing far right. Do you believe that or not? He also had quite a lot to say on asylum seeker hotels. Let's look at that too. And pretty much as we speak during this programme, they'll start to prepare to vote on the abortion issue in Parliament, i.e. whether to decriminalise essentially killing your own child up until birth. How grotesque. Let's look and see how that goes. And we've signed a trade deal with the US. Does this mean that we're now besties? Or is all of that a little bit far-fetched? And tell me something, what do you think to stamp duty? It's been proposed now that over 65 should get a freedom pass and be exempt from paying it if they want to downsize. Some people, though, say that stamp duty shouldn't be a thing at all. What says you? Well, we've got all of that and lots more. And look at my panel tonight. So I've got Baroness Jacqueline Foster, the Conservative peer, and Lord Steve McCabe, the Labour peer. But before we get stuck in, let's cross live and give you your 6 o'clock news headlines.
Good evening, I'm Katie Bowen in the GB newsroom. Sir Keir Starmer has said that the National Grooming Gangs inquiry needs to go wherever it needs to go and that there won't be any no-go zones, suggesting that councils, police forces and officials across government could be investigated. Speaking to GB News political editor Christopher Hope at the G7 summit in Canada, the Prime Minister further clarified comments about those calling for a national inquiry to be jumping on a far-right bandwagon, specifically related to politicians. It comes as the author of that major review into grooming gangs, Baroness Louise Casey, has urged people to keep calm about drawing conclusions from data on the ethnicity of suspects and offenders. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper claimed officials have dodged the issue of ethnicity among the groups of sex offenders for fear of being called racist, even though available data showed suspects were disproportionately likely to be Pakistani men. Here's what Sir Keir Starmer told Christopher Hope.
We want that inquiry to go wherever it needs to go. Yeah. Having set it up on a statutory footing, it is my strong belief that that inquiry needs to go wherever it goes. So there won't be any no-go zones, so far as I'm concerned.
Good. And report back by when?
Well, we're setting up the terms of reference.
Not 10 years, though.
No. I don't like inquiries that take too long. Yeah. It needs to do its job and do its job properly.
Breaking news this hour, a record 17,000 small boat migrants have crossed the English Channel so far this year. That figure is the highest on record for this point in any year since the crisis began in 2018. That comes as the Prime Minister said today that we need to empty asylum hotels and that the government is looking at a variety of options to tackle the small boats crisis, a situation which they describe as deteriorating. Sir Keir Starmer said that authorities are looking at measures surrounding visas and returns agreements, as well as closing all asylum hotels by 2029. That comes as French authorities are struggling to cope with a huge surge in serious violence in the migrant camps of northern France, a senior security source has told GB News. To the Middle East, where Iran has launched a fresh wave of strikes towards Israel in the last half hour. That's according to Iranian state media. All of that comes as Iran and Israel are exchanging fire for a fifth day. The Iranian ambassador to the UK said today that the narrative about Iran as an existential threat is false and is used by Israel to justify aggression and hide Israel's war crimes, adding that Iran has no intention to enrich to level of nuclear bomb. Another breaking update, Iranian state media saying that Israel has launched a major cyber war against Iran's digital infrastructure. And breaking also in the last half hour, President Trump has written on Truth Social saying we have complete and total control of the skies over Iran, adding that we are not going to kill the Iranian supreme leader and that our patience is wearing thin, urging the unconditional surrender of Iran. We'll bring you more on that breaking story as we get it. Those are your latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Michelle.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much for that. I am Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs & Co keeping you company until 7 o'clock tonight. That last story there that Katie was covering, well, how on earth do you think all of this situation in Iran and Israel is going to end? What should happen next? And I asked this the other day, how involved, if at all, do you think the UK should be? Also tonight, I want to talk to you about stamp duty, ladies and gents. I imagine that pretty much nobody is a fan of it, are you? But should over 65-year-olds be essentially exempt to encourage them to downsize their properties? What do you think to that? So I'll get into all of that and more alongside me, Baroness Jacqueline Foster, the Tory peer and former MEP, and Lord Steve McCabe, the Labour peer and former Labour MP. Good evening to both of you. Nice to see you again. We've not seen you for a while. You're very welcome back. You know the drill. Join the conversation in all the usual ways. Tell me what's on your mind tonight. Email me, gbviews@gbnews.com. Go to the website, gbnews.com/yoursay. Or, of course, you can tweet or you can X me. Now, we all know what happened yesterday around the announcements to do with the grooming gangs. And today we also know that the G7 has been taking place in Canada. Let's cross live to our political editor, Christopher Hope. Christopher, interesting conversations taking place, I'm sure. Bring us up to speed.
Yeah, hi, Michelle. Great to see you. I'm in the Canadian Rockies here, where the G7 meeting is coming to a close shortly. We've had a chance to meet with Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, and of course we've asked him about the grooming gangs and the government's decision to order a national inquiry. I was very keen to understand from him the difference here between the language in January, when he told me it was a far-right political bandwagon to jump on, to now, when it's a good idea to have a national inquiry into it. And here's what he told GB News about an hour ago.
When you said to me in January in that hospital, you said that it's a far-right bandwagon if you're calling for national inquiry. I know you're talking about politicians, but a lot of GB News viewers and listeners were also concerned, and they felt you were calling them far-right. Would you perhaps regret that remark?
Well, I wasn't calling them far right. Now, Chris, right. I think you maybe been in the room, and
yes, I was there.
You will have known. I said expressly politicians, and I mean politicians, and I was expressly calling out politicians who had been in office and done nothing, and it was them that I was criticising.
It's not a far-right issue, is it?
No, and I was certainly wasn't criticising your viewers, but I think if you look at what I said, and I know you have done carefully and you'll have listened to it, I'm very, very explicit, because there's one thing that I find frustrating. It's politicians who had the opportunity in power to do something about it and did absolutely nothing. Now claiming, late to the issue, that the only ones that have ever raised the issue. I've been raising this issue for 15 years. I'm really glad that I'm the Prime Minister that's actually now put in place a national inquiry.
Now, the PM also told me for GB News that he thinks any investigation by the National Inquiry should go anywhere. I asked him, should it investigate public bodies, councillors, police and the like? He was very clear. He wants that inquiry to go wherever it needs to go. So the idea that people have been hiding, covering up this wrongdoing, that could be at an end if this inquiry does its work, as Sir Keir Starmer says. And just all the other issue, big issue raised here by Sir Keir Starmer is about illegal migration. They had an entire session devoted to that at G8 just yesterday. He said, though, in terms of the language used when he met with Emmanuel Macron. The PM and Emmanuel Macron are disappointed by the numbers crossing over the small boats over the Channel, 2,000 so far this week. He's got a new idea. He's planning, he says, Sir Keir Starmer, to dock the visa quotas for those countries which are not stopping migrants coming here. Here's what he told GB News.
Must do more. We're looking at innovative solutions, what more we can do to
Any examples of that?
together. Well, an example I would say is looking in a much more smart way at the way we deal with visas, perhaps more transactional, you might say, which is looking at the countries that we have visa arrangements with and asking ourselves, are there enough preventative measures? Have we got a returns agreement? That's one example, but there are plenty of others. But I accept that we need to do more. That is why I'm having intense discussions here at the G7 with our partners to ensure that we do that.
With migrant hotels, can you guarantee they'll all be emptied by 2029?
Yes, that's what we want to do.
That's a guarantee to our viewers.
Yes, we're working to that, and the way to do that is to process the claims. The last government left tens of thousands of people unprocessed. That meant they couldn't be removed, even if they had no right to be here. So we inherited a real mess. We're working through that at pace. 30,000 have already been removed. That's the highest number for
not all force of
highest number for the best part of a decade. We'll continue in that vein.
And where will those?
You're absolutely right. We need to empty those hotels. That is not good. In terms of the cases not being processed, it's certainly not good for the taxpayer.
And where will they go to live? In the communities, in flats, in HMOs?
Well, the ideal situation is they're processed, and if they've got no right to be here, they're removed to the country they came from.
There you have it, Sir Keir Starmer, with a transactional idea to curb visa numbers in order to stop those countries or force those countries to act further on illegal migration. And listen closely there, Michelle, on the issue of migrant hotels. He gave us a guarantee they would be emptied by 2029, but didn't say where they're going to go. The idea the government's got is to try and speed up the processing of these applications for asylum. But frankly, they could end up in all of our communities in flats and housings of multiple occupation. That could also bring its own tensions.
Thank you very much for that, Chopper. I was indeed listening very closely to that interview, and a few things jumped out at me, Steve. This whole notion, and I think it's I think it's a lie, basically, that Keir Starmer was not. He's now suggesting that he wasn't talking about random people when he was suggesting that it is far right to be concerned about grooming gangs. He was actually talking about politicians. Most people won't believe that, you know. Do you?
Well, I mean, if people don't believe it, it doesn't really matter what you say, they're not going to believe it. It is true that at the time, there was a bandwagoning effect by politicians who'd recently gone into opposition and who'd done nothing about it during the years they were in power.
Sure, but why were the words far...
actually the
Sure,
case.
agree. But why were the words far right inserted into that sentence?
Well, because I think the view was that those people, those politicians, had shifted their position to a much further right stance than the one they'd adopted when they'd been in power and been the government.
Exactly. So calling for an inquiry, thereby being a far right issue. People are really angry about that.
Look, I understand that, and look, it's not my job to defend the words that different people use. I don't think calling for an inquiry was a far-right issue. I think calling for an inquiry, immediately you become the opposition, and not having done anything about it when you were in power is a pretty rum deal. I think there were certain elements in the political sphere who were seen to be engineering it in a way that could be regarded as a far-right issue. I think that is a fair point. I don't at all accept that calling for an inquiry into this is a right-wing issue.
How, sir, your final point there about that people were engineering it as some kind of far-right issue, how, sir?
Well, because I think folks suggesting, for example, that child sexual abuse and exploitation is exclusively an issue that occurs within certain ethnic groups is just not true.
But I don't think anyone's ever said that white people don't sexually exploit children. I've not heard a single person, correct me if I'm wrong, ever saying that. What people have only ever said, it's predominantly Pakistani men.
Yes,
disproportionately
and
so.
the best reason for having a proper inquiry is to establish that. I mean, look...
But that's not far right suggesting that, is it? If someone sits there and goes, you know what, this issue is disproportionately, predominantly Pakistani men, you wouldn't say that that's far right, or would you?
No, I wouldn't say that, but I would say that if you are using that situation to peddle a set of views that are designed to create divisions in communities, that could be described as far-right politics.
But I don't understand, because I would say the people that are creating divisions would be the predominantly Pakistani men that are thinking that they can have free rein to get hold of young white working-class girls from care homes or schools or wherever and actually use them as some kind of grotesque sex toy to be peddled among them. To me, that's who's creating division, not the people that are flagging that.
Well, any group who are seeking to exploit young people, young children, boys or girls in that way, are people who need to be tracked down and feel the full weight of the law. One of the issues that the inquiry will almost certainly look at will be not only who are these people, but who were the agencies who were incapable of doing their job. What was wrong with the agencies that meant that this was allowed to go on?
But we know what was wrong with them. We know what was wrong with them. They were so terrified of being called racist. I listened to Baroness Casey last night, you know. She was saying that she looked at one of these cases. The word Pakistani had been Tipp-X'd out. Literally, Tipp-X'd out of the report, so it just said rapist. Jacqueline Foster, your thoughts?
Well, I've never known a Prime Minister have such memory loss on so many things in such a short time. We all remember exactly what he said. We remember clearly, even recently, what a lot of Labour ministers said. It wasn't just about us being far right. I'm not just talking about calling for a national public inquiry, but even prior to that, when we were trying to raise issues, if we were trying to raise them, and politicians, apart from members of the public, we were also racist or we were Islamophobic. So this has been going on for a long time. So for him to stand there and then try and wriggle out of this is just absolutely astonishing, but I'm not remotely surprised. You know, even until recently, Lucy Powell, the comments she came out with, Labour, some women Labour MPs on Twitter over the years telling the girls to shut up and not cause problems. I mean, we've got all the evidence there. And so, you know, if somebody said something and it's incorrect, then you turn around to the police and say, OK, I made a mistake here. But it's the way. It's not only the Prime Minister. Yvette Cooper today, they pretend, I think they're living in a parallel universe and they think that the entire British public have got hearing problems.
Yeah, I just think there's a strange thing that's gone on in society, and it's gone on for quite some time now, that stating facts has basically become something that should be poo-pooed and discouraged, and you actually get labelled as some kind of terrible thing if you have the audacity to state a fact. So if you sit there and you look at a man, for example, and you go, that's a man, and actually that man wants to be called a woman, if you have the audacity to state the fact, you're a transphobe. If you have the audacity to want actually to have a proper investigation into, is it the fact that this group of people are predominantly Pakistani? Is there something there that means that they are specifically targeting girls, predominantly white girls? Is there something in this that might be connected to their, I don't know, their belief system or culture or whatever it is? There's nothing wrong with asking those questions, but we've got into a habit now where you're a racist, you're a far-right lunatic, you're a transphobe, you're an Islamophobe. It's absolutely absurd, and it is intended to silence debate, but not on this watch, ladies and gents, worry not. Look, there was another idea then that Keir Starmer floated about the asylum seekers and about tweaks potentially to the visas. Let's explore that after the break.
This is our country, and we think it's amazing. From high tea to the high street, we love it all. Even the rain, we like that too. There's nowhere else we'd rather be. That's why we're here to be the fearless champion of Britain, its voices and its values. Because we are GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, weekdays from 9 p.m.
Should we be paying more for the BBC, do you think?
Yes, in the short term. It's for a cost of a cappuccino a week. You don't only get all the television channels, you get all the radio channels, local news, you get the websites, you get World Service, a significant amount of that. You've got a vast range of things. It's not just a television licence. And the BBC licence fee, in real terms, has gone down about 40% in 15 years. What I think we need is two things. One is an immediate increase, significant increase, so we stabilise the situation.
Go on, how much, Roger? What's the fee?
Hold on.
Well, tell me how much.
Then, secondly, hold on, we need to have a proper debate publicly about whether we want public service broadcasting, how we want to deliver it, and how we want to pay for it. The BBC has cut as much as it can. We should now have a public debate about what we want.
OK. All right, the BBC's cut as much as it can. I mean, grief. I would love to try to see the BBC try to operate on the kind of budget.
I thought you were chairman, objective chairman here. It was a head-to-head with this lady, and you were going to be an objective chairman.
Yeah, well, you decided not to answer any of my questions. But anyway, June, I'll put this one to you. Well, what do you think about the money?
Yes.
June, what do you think about the money being paid for the BBC? Should we pay more?
In 2020, you lost 80, let's have a look, 80,000. And then by 2023 to 24, that went up to 500,000 licence fees not being paid. That's because they don't want the product. A lot of the reason is the biased side of the news, which is why people watch GB News. The programme making, I can understand the creative part of it, but what you've got to look at from the public's point of view is they pay their licence whether they're using all those facilities or not.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Dewbs & Co. with me, Michelle Dewberry, Baroness Jacqueline Foster and Lord Steve McCabe. We've just been talking about the grooming gang situation. Of course, Elon Musk, he was at the forefront of driving a lot of this stuff, wasn't he? He's just put a tweet out today saying, high time there was justice for the mass rape of little girls in Britain. This moral stain cannot be washed... the moral stain of this cannot be washed away. What do you think to that? Now, if you saw the interview with Christopher Hope at the start of the programme with the G7, he was asking Keir Starmer all about these small boats, what you're going to do in terms, for example, of the asylum hotels. Keir Starmer reckons that they will close essentially by 2029. Well, yeah, that's not going to be rocket science, is it? Because you're just going to relocate those people to a street near you, I imagine. Well, not near Keir Starmer, near the rest of us. What do you think to that idea? But another idea that pricked my ears up, so it did, was a suggestion that you could look at now potentially restricting visa quotas to the countries that essentially refuse to do their bit in stopping illegal migration. Steve McCabe, your thoughts?
Well, I think it depends what countries we're talking about. I actually think there are some African countries that make it far too easy for people to get on the migrant route. And I think if you were to take some action there, that might actually have some benefit.
Is this really innovative, though? It was sold to us today as kind of like, yes, you know, we're really essentially being not entrepreneurial, but so creative in our thinking, is it?
Well, I think what we're trying to do is look at every option possible. Look, nobody has succeeded in stopping the boats so far. Lots of people have said they were going to stop them. No one succeeded. Everyone agrees.
Australia did. Operation Sovereign Border had none of it. They did. They deployed things like turnbacks, pushbacks and all the rest of it. They managed to stop their boats.
Well, I don't know what you're suggesting. We tow them back across the English Channel.
Yeah, but you look at me there as if that's a daft suggestion. I think that's a very, very
I just
sensible
wonder how
suggestion.
easy it would be to do that. It's a genuine question.
What I would like to see explored, because the mental gymnastics that people seem to be going through to come up with all these different ideas of all these random things we could do once people reach these shores and so on. What can we put them in? Where can they live? I find that fascinating. But I feel very perplexed that there doesn't seem to be a proper national conversation originating from this government, which is looking at how do we stop these people reaching these shores in the first place? How do we literally explore pushing those boats back, turning those boats back? Because actually, you can go around the houses, but when all's said and done, the only way you're going to stop it is literally stopping those boats either coming out of the shore at Calais or pushing them back to Calais. That's it, really.
Well, I mean, my view is that the government is doing what it can by negotiating international arrangements, by trying to stem this much further down the line than before they get to France. We are not finding it easy. We're not that different from any other European country I can think of in trying to deal with the problem. And we have to keep at it until we find a way of breaking the gangs and of stemming the number who are actually getting to France in the first place.
Whenever you board anyone, go on the likes of TikTok. It's like some kind of random travel brochure encouraging people to come to this country. Very bizarre scenes that you can see on some social media sites. I'm sure the social media sites would say that they do everything they can to stop that stuff, but really? Use your eyes, guys. Anyway, Jacqueline.
Well, frankly, I mean, this government have lost total control. In the last, since they've been in since last July, the numbers have gone up in terms of the illegal numbers coming across on the boats. Notwithstanding, this is big business. This is generated. This is all about money, and on the backs of misery. We have people right across Europe and right across the world, actually. It doesn't stop in Europe, this. And they're making millions and billions out of all of it. And once you've got that in, it's like the drugs trade. It's very, very hard to stop. The worst thing that the government did, there was a bona fide deterrent, and it was called Rwanda. And it was planned very carefully. The Rwandans had everything right at their end. We'd gone through all the legal processes, and it was due to start in July last year. Now, it wasn't a silver bullet, and it wasn't the only thing that could be a deterrent, because what I do agree with, in terms with you, Michelle, very clearly, people should not be allowed to land in the UK in the first place. And if they do get this far, then there should have been things like internment camps where people were then processed, and we could actually then get rid of them quickly, if possible. So,
But you say this, Jacqueline.
Yeah.
You say this, and people from the Tories say this all the time about this Rwanda plan. If it had the potential to be so good, why did Rishi Sunak then bottle it before a single plane had gone off the ground and call an early election? He knew full well, because the Labour Party were clear. They said, we will scrap the Rwanda plan. He knew that was going to be scrapped if he lost that election. And if he believed in that plan, why didn't he have some chops and see it through?
I mean, he wouldn't have called the election just because of the Rwanda plan. It was much wider. I fundamentally disagreed with him calling the election when he did in July, because actually most of us thought that they would call the election in October. And, I've been around this business for a long, long time. But at the end of the day, it took a lot of time to get that process up and running. And, of course, Keir Starmer comes in and just completely dismisses it. And now they're in a worse hole than we were before.
Ladies and gents, it is an absolute mess. Do you have the answer? I don't know. Are politicians overlooking something? Are you screaming at your television sets? I bet some of you are. Get in touch. Tell me your thoughts on all of that. I want to talk to you about lots after the break, including stamp duty. Is it time for that to be scrapped?
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The heat wave across Portugal, Spain and France is going to continue to build for the next couple of days. We're looking at temperatures in the mid to high 30s, possibly 40 Celsius for a few places. And with that heat, there's a risk of some hefty showers across Portugal and Spain. Some thundery downpours are possible. A few showers also possible further east, affecting Italy and into Greece and Turkey. But actually, through the outlook period, as we go towards the weekend, it's looking largely sunny for many and staying pretty hot.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Over the next 24 hours we'll see pressure rise from the south, bringing fine weather for most of us and then leading to a warming trend during the rest of the week. Here's the high pressure. It's been across southern parts of the UK during the week so far, but it's trapped a weather front, and that front has brought an area of cloud and rain south. As that front is squeezed under the area of high pressure, it will tend to fizzle away, cloud becomes patchy, rain peters out, and overnight we're going to see a lot of dry and clear weather, temperatures dipping to 14 or 15 in the south, perhaps the single figures for some sheltered parts in northern UK, and a gusty wind through the night for northern western Scotland, along with a few showers. Those showers continuing first thing, but really across England and Wales it's dry, it's bright, some areas of cloud lingering in the south. Won't be long before they clear. And then for Scotland and Northern Ireland, a bright start as well in the south of Scotland, eastern parts of Northern Ireland. But the cloud is tending to thicken once again from the west, and we'll see some light showers predominantly to the north of the central belt. The gusty wind in northern Scotland will tend to ease gradually through the day, but it is a tale of two halves across the UK. I think a cloudy day for Northern Ireland and Scotland with some light showers around, but for England and Wales, plenty of blue skies and temperatures responding well to the strong June sunshine. We're talking about widely mid-20s, perhaps up to 27 or 28 Celsius in some of the warmer spots in the southeast. Then we start off Thursday with plenty of sunshine once again, but we do have this area of cloud moving north across central and northern Scotland, some outbreaks of showery rain in the far northwest. And that's generally going to drift far enough north to allow sunny skies across the whole of the country later Thursday and into Friday, and that will allow temperatures to rise up to the high 20s and low 30s in places.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The A68 remains closed at Leaderfoot due to a road incident. Motorists should find other routes. On the A404 southbound near Windsor, one lane is closed due to a collision causing moderate delays. Kent's M2 eastbound exit slip at Junction 3 has lane closures from a broken down vehicle, expected to be resolved soon. The A49 northbound near Herefordshire has a vehicle fire, restricting one lane. And on the trains, East Midlands Railway reports disruptions through Luton, while Gatwick Express faces delays between Gatwick Airport and Purley. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Dewbs and Co, and good evening to you. If you're just tuning in, I've got Baroness Jacqueline Foster, the Tory peer, and Lord Steve McCabe, the Labour peer, sitting alongside me. I've got to say, I know you guys at home, some of you, and you are still furious, you don't believe, a word that Keir Starmer said about that far-right situation that he tried to correct and backwards were on earlier on. Lots of you are getting in touch about stamp duty. Worry not, I shall be covering that before the end of the programme. And Jane has been in touch on Twitter, says, Michelle, you're asking ideas of how to stop these Burt crossings. Why aren't the Burts just slashed before people actually start climbing in them and they're getting inflated or whatever? She's asking, why are they not just slashed there? What are the French police doing? Well, if you'd have seen some of the scenes that was unfolding, I think I saw bits of pepper spray and all the rest of it flying around today. But is it theatre, though? Will it ever actually make a difference? Keep your thoughts on that one coming in. But look, in Parliament, pretty much as we speak, we touched on this yesterday, didn't we? Abortion, very emotive issue, very divisive issue. But now, tonight, literally in the next half an hour or so, they will be voting on whether or not women should be spared prosecution if they terminate a pregnancy after 24 weeks in England and Wales. So we'll know the outcome of this vote about, I don't know, just after 7, I imagine. Steve, what's your thoughts?
Well, it's a difficult issue. I mean, I've always thought that it is a woman's right to choose. I don't think abortion should be an alternative to contraception, but I'm not at all sure that a woman who terminates a late pregnancy does it without some very strong reasons, and I'm not sure prosecution is the best way to deal with it.
Sure, but adults murder other adults with very strong feelings and emotions associated, don't they? You still send them to prison. If you murdered your child seconds after it was born, you'd probably find yourself behind bars. So what's the difference if it was seconds before?
Well, because there are actually already existing provisions whereby people can have terminations beyond 24 weeks, and we don't know the emotional state of the individual when she makes that decision. As far as I know, there were 2 amendments tonight. I would back the one that would actually not prosecute the women in those circumstances, but I wouldn't leave a free-for-all, which I think was the other one.
You're on about, the second one that you're talking about was the Stella Creasy one. Jacqueline, your thoughts?
Well, I agree with some of the points I think that Steve made. I actually wouldn't decriminalise for a very good reason, that you have to... It should be a last resort abortion. And sadly, we've got into a situation, and I was young in the days when it was actually backstreet abortions, so it was horrendous. I would actually be looking at reducing 24 weeks down to about 16 because of the technology that we now have, because you can sustain life much earlier. But notwithstanding, 250,000 women had abortions last year, and I'm sure the vast majority of them were quite legitimate. But I believe that too many people are actually using abortion as contraception, and I think this is not acceptable. And I think there needs to be a sort of very different way of thinking about how we're dealing with this issue. And just to decriminalise it like this, I think, is not helpful.
One of my viewers got in touch. It was the first tweet I got, actually, right at the start of the programme, saying, Michelle, when you have this conversation, please can you point out that actually if a child has got Down syndrome, that child can be terminated right up until the point of birth. Yes, you're absolutely right. And it's not just Down syndrome. It is things like cleft palate, those kind of things. You know my views if you watch this programme often. I absolutely do not agree with that either. Look, keep your thoughts on that one coming in, and we'll follow that vote, of course, with interest. I just think, what kind of world do we live in when we're literally sitting now and debating whether or not a woman should avoid prosecution if she kills her own kid? I just think, how is society progressing in this direction? I think it's all very wrong. Anyway, look, Donald Trump, many of you think that he's very wrong. But look what happened at the G7 earlier on. Take a watch.
We have our trade agreement with the European Union, and it's a fair deal for both. Going to produce a lot of jobs, a lot of income, and we have many other ones coming. But you see the level of enthusiasm is very good, but the relationship that we have is fantastic. So I just want to congratulate you.
Well, Donald, thank you very much. This now implements on car tariffs and aerospace, our really important agreement.
Right, well, it didn't get off to a flying start, that trade deal. Take a look at what they actually did with it.
We all know the great Prime Minister of the UK, and we just signed a document. This is... Sorry about that.
A very important document.
A little windy out here. Give it that.
If you was listening on the radio, you don't know what went on then. They were proudly showcasing the trade deal and then subsequently dropped it all over the floor, leaving Sir Keir Starmer to scrabble around, pick it all up and put it all back together again. So this special relationship then that we have, Jacqueline Foster, is this demonstrated by us getting this trade deal?
Well, I'm very happy that we now have a framework. It's really a framework for a trade deal. It's not fully blown. And this is where the tariff issue came in. And so I'm particularly happy that we're actually being able to sort out the car industry, the aerospace sector, steel, which still have pretty high tariffs. But as I said, it's just the start. The devil will be in the detail. And what I would like to give Kemi Badenoch some support for during our time She was when she was Trade Secretary, she did a huge amount of work in the different states within the United States, because the way you do trade deals in the United States, you have to get the other states on board. The federal government doesn't have control over every detail. So she did a number of the what's called MOUs, the Memorandum of Understanding, which actually brought us to this point. The difficulty we had, actually, when we were in power before the election, was actually a Biden administration. And sadly, the Biden administration was pretty hostile to the UK government at the time. I don't think it would have been any more helpful, even with the change of government last year. And so the fact there has been a change with Trump, and this is a man that wants a deal, you know, I'm happy at least we've got this far. But it will be very interesting to see the real detail of this, because the detail takes a huge amount of time.
Indeed, and the devil is always in that detail, isn't it, ladies and gents? Steve, your thoughts?
Well, it is a work in progress. It's essentially a response to Donald Trump's tariffs. I agree with Jacqueline that it's good news if you're in the car manufacturing business up at Jaguar Land Rover in Birmingham and Solihull. They'll be very relieved, as will the aerospace sector. But there's a lot of work to be done, and, you know, it's a bit worrying. I hope it's not an omen for it that the President referred to it as an EU deal and then promptly dropped it on the ground. But, you know, there's a way to go. The good news is we have been able to spare ourselves some of the worst effects of the tariff arrangements, and that would have had a very bad effect on some key jobs in this country.
Well, let's watch this space and see what unfolds next. How do you feel about it? Have you got a job that's been potentially impacted by the outcome of said trade deals? Tell me your thoughts on that one. I know there's a plant in Hull that are watching this very, very closely indeed. What do you think is the situation in Iran and Israel with Donald Trump seemingly trying to reckon he's not getting involved, but many people suggest he likely will be?
I think Donald Trump is on side. The Americans, I don't believe, want to directly be seen to getting involved in action. But they're there. They're great supporters. I'm very disappointed, actually, in the British government's response, notwithstanding in April and October last year, the RAF went in to help in terms of intercepting the missiles. So I don't think there was anything controversial like that with that. And then, unfortunately, this government has basically thrown its hands up and sort of said we're not having anything to do with this at all. I think it sends out a very poor message for a British government to take this sort of position, along with some of the other things they've done, revoking licences and, you know, I don't know, 2 of the Israeli ministers, they want to sanction all this. Very mixed messages. I'm not happy about that at all. For Iran, I've been supporting the Iranian dissidents really for the last couple of years or more, who really put their lives on the line, who live in the UK. I mean, the best outcome that we would all want, actually, is a regime change. You know, these despotic people have actually ruined this country over the last 40 or 50 years. And so it'd be interesting to see how that goes, because clearly there's an awful lot that's going on that we can't see at this moment in time. I'd like to see the Labour government proscribe the IRGC now as a terrorist organisation, which it's been reluctant to do so, and we should have done it, actually, when we were in power too. And so aside from that, I wish the Israelis well. These families are in shelters, you know, every night. And what the Iranian government have done, of course, this terrible regime, is they've targeted the civilians, whereas the IDF and the Israeli Air Force, they have targeted specific sites. And so, you know, we won't take any criticism from people who go, poor Iran. You want to get over to Iran and just see what it's like for people to live there.
Steve?
Well, I think what Jacqueline and I have in common here is that we're both supporters of the Israeli state and the Israeli people. And we're both opponents of the Iranian regime, the Ayatollah's regime, not the Iranian people. And it would be a disaster if we were to stand by and let the Iranians obtain a nuclear weapon. So, you know, however anxious people are about what's happening at the moment, the Israelis obviously had sufficient intelligence to tell them it was time to strike now. And if this results in destroying Iran's nuclear capability, and if it even stretches further into the eventual downfall of what is a vicious, brutal regime in Iran, then that would be good for the entire Middle East.
Well, both of these are on a similar page. What page are you on? Do you agree with them? Or you might have very strong opinions. To the counter of that, get in touch and tell me. But look, so many of you have got in touch with me. You really want me to get onto this subject, stamp duty. Do you support stamp duty? Should over 65s get a freedom pass, basically to encourage them to downsize? Your thoughts?
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Dewberry. Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dewbs, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Dewbs & Co. with me, Michelle Dewberry. Alongside me, I've got Baroness Jacqueline Foster and I've got Lord Steve McCabe alongside me till then. I've just been reading in the break so many of your email messages that you've been sending me, and I've got to be honest, so many of them have actually made me feel quite emotional, actually. You're getting in touch with me in your droves as well about this abortion vote that's taking place as we speak in Parliament. So many of you have got really emotional stories that you're opening up and sharing with me, and I thank you for that, Karen. Thank you for sending me pictures of your two little beautiful girls. Jean, you know, you're telling me about the trauma that you feel and feel for many, many years, and that's made me sad. I really hope that you find some peace. It's really got you all talking, and it really is quite a personal, emotional subject, I can tell, to so many of you, lots of you as well, coming up with solutions on that first topic that we covered about the small boat crossing. Some of them, I will tell you, I can't read them out on national television, but some of your suggestions do actually make me smile. But look, stamp duty, that is the one that's really got you talking tonight. Are you over the age of 65? Have you got a big house with more bedrooms than you need? Have your children gone? Would you be disincentivised to downsize with different property because of the stamp duty attached to that move? There's been calls for a so-called freedom pass to get people at that age and beyond moving, get some movement into the housing market by giving them a pass to make them exempt from stamp duty. Jacqueline Foster, your thoughts?
I think this is terrible. They're targeting us now, and all our over 65s, including me, trying to get me out my house. On a serious note, I don't like stamp duty at all. I think governments over the years have obviously needed the money to do certain things, or said they did, and I just think it's a penalty. I mean, obviously, to be fair, we've tried to reduce it over the years, and then, you know, the government have come up with this suggestion, or somebody's come up with this sort of suggestion. I'm not wholly opposed to the suggestion. I think that when you're looking at downsizing, but the question is, you know, is stamp duty preventing somebody from downsizing, basically? And normally, when you downsize, you're looking to get some cash, really, in your bank, because you're going to sell a bigger property and you're going to get something smaller. So I wouldn't say it was a huge percentage of people that wouldn't sell their properties when they're older because of stamp duty, personally. But, you know, I think anything that can maybe encourage people to do things, I think is a good thing. But then you've got to make sure you've got the right housing stock for people who do want to downsize. I think where the concern comes, actually, from my point of view, is in the public sector in terms of council housing and whatever, because there's definitely a shortage if you talk to people in terms of people who want to just be in a single dwelling. But then again, you've got the emotional problem with somebody who's lived in a council house their entire lives. The husband dies, maybe their eldest son has left. They've got a little 3-bedroom house, and then the council goes, by the way, Gladys, you know, you're out at the end of the week. And so I think you have to be quite thoughtful, really, the way you would deal with something like this.
Well, apparently there's almost 4 million older households, which is defined as age 65 or above. I don't actually think 65 is old. Are you 65 plus? Do you feel old? I wouldn't have said so. Anyway, 4 million older households, a quarter of those have 2 spare bedrooms. Apparently 40% of those have 3 spare bedrooms, and 21% of those have 4 spare bedrooms or more. Steve, your thoughts?
Well, I'm not convinced the housing market is that sluggish. It's actually quite regionalised at the moment. If you were up in Hull, you wouldn't necessarily say it was that sluggish. This seems to be an issue that's aimed at London and the South East. It's essentially a subsidy for people of a certain age, which would cost the Treasury a lot of money at a time when it's kind of difficult to finance the things we're trying to do. There's already a subsidy for first-time buyers, and that's costing about, you know, 730 million a year. So I have no idea what this would cost on top. I also doubt it's the major factor in people downsizing, because if you were going to pay the kind of figure in stamp duty that's been alleged in this article, well, you'd need to be selling a property that was worth about 1.5 or 2 million, and you'd need to be buying a property that was worth about 250 to 400,000. So, I mean, I don't honestly think this is the answer. There's something like 500,000 empty properties in this country. We'd be far better taking action to put them into use if we're concerned.
What do you mean, take action? To put an empty
Well, I think if a property is lying empty for an extensive period of time and the person who owns it is taking no action to make use of it, then it should be utilised by a housing executive and used to deal with areas where there are chronic family housing
what an
problems.
awful idea. So if someone's worked hard, bought a property and decided, you know what, I might use it, I might not use it, you want that to be secure.
And you think they should be entitled to just leave it and let the garden go to wreck and ruin, let the roof fall in and the neighbours on either side see the value of their property deteriorating because someone isn't prepared to take any action to look after their own?
Well, first of all,
I don't agree with that.
I would say, first of all,
I've met too many people when I was a Member of Parliament who were the victims of folk who'd bought properties and just left them to go to wreck and ruin. That's why
I've seen some of the states of the front gardens of houses that people actually do live in and frequent. And actually, if I think back to when I was younger, it used to be a thing. I'm going to sound like an old biddy now, but it used to be a thing that people took great pride in their front gardens. They used to wash your front step, you used to clean your front step. Now, have you seen the state of some people's houses? I'm not sure that I agree with the state basically taking ownership, though, if someone doesn't maintain the garden, because where do you draw the line with that? Matt's got in touch and says, Michelle, stamp duty is basically an absolute cheek. Just because someone has the audacity to want to move house, how dare the state try and take even more money from us? This tax should be scrapped in its entirety, you're saying. At the end of the day, though, when it comes to housing and wanting to move and all the rest of it, good luck, everyone, being able to even afford houses these days. You mentioned just in London, house prices are skyrocketing all over the place. It is a massive challenge now for people to be able to afford a home, especially when you add on all of these additional costs. And by the way, the policy that we started this programme with, Keir Starmer, saying that he's going to remove people, these asylum seekers so-called, from hotels. Yes, because he's probably going to put them in high streets and residential streets near you. And what will that do to property prices, ladies and gents, when all of these landlords can't help themselves but acquire all this new stock to get their 5-7-year contracts at bumper rents? That is going to, of course, boost and increase house prices whilst pricing out locals. Honestly, I sometimes think that we've got some kind of death wish when it comes to policies in this country. I really, really do. Look, I have to end by sending my love and respect to many of you that have been deeply impacted by abortions, for a variety of different reasons. I want to assure you that I do read your stories and I really appreciate you getting in touch with me. There's not a lot of love for stamp duty, to put it mildly, in the inbox. That's all I've got time for tonight. Thanks to my panel. Thanks to you at home. Have a good night. I'll see you tomorrow night.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Over the next 24 hours, we'll see pressure rise from the south, bringing fine weather for most of us, and then leading to a warming trend during the rest of the week. Here's the high pressure. It's been across southern parts of the UK during the week so far, but it's trapped a weather front, and that front has brought an area of cloud and rain south. As that front is squeezed under the area of high pressure, it will tend to fizzle away, cloud becomes patchy, rain peters out, and overnight we're going to see a lot of dry and clear weather, temperatures dipping to 14 or 15 in the south, perhaps the single figures for some sheltered parts in northern UK, and a gusty wind through the night for northern and western Scotland, along with a few showers. Those showers continuing first thing, but really across England and Wales it's dry. It's bright, some areas of cloud lingering in the south. Won't be long before they clear. And then for Scotland and Northern Ireland, a bright start as well in the south of Scotland, eastern parts of Northern Ireland. But the cloud is tending to thicken once again from the west, and we'll see some light showers, predominantly to the north of the central belt. The gusty wind in northern Scotland will tend to ease gradually through the day, but it is a tale of two halves across the UK. I think a cloudy day for Northern Ireland and Scotland with some light showers around, but for England and Wales, plenty of blue skies and temperatures responding well to the strong June sunshine.